It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name is George Cooper and welcome to the show. What a relief it is to be finally talking about a win after 4 losses on the bounce. Fulham finally get back to winning ways at home to a woeful Wolverhampton Wanderers at Craven Cottage. It was as comfortable as a Premier League victory is going to get. Ryan Sessegnon getting us off the mark. Harry Wilson doubling our lead before our top scorer strikes again. A Mosquera own goal on the 75th minute. Rounding it off, a clean sheet, 3 goals. Fulham, as I said, back to winning ways. And boy, does it feel good. We're going to be talking about the game in detail. We're going to be going over the goals, the VAR controversy, the state of Wolves. Joining me today is Mr. Jordan Wilson-Pearce. How you doing, mate? It's been a little while. It's good to see you again.
I know. Delighted to be back. I think last time I was on was the Newcastle 2-1 win away last year. So I might be the good luck charm.
Yeah, we'll get you on more often. Dan Cooke is also with us. You all right, mate?
Doing good, Coops. I was on that podcast with Jordan as well. So maybe that's the dynamic duo we need.
Yeah, well, to complete the trifecta of positivity, we've also got AF. You all right, mate?
I've never been referred to in the same sentence of positivity, but I'd absolutely take it. To be fair, I feel like I haven't been on a winning podcast this season. So it's great to be able to talk about Fulham prevailing rather than failing.
It is it's amazing how much it lifts your mood, doesn't it? Like I kind of feel, I've got good over the years of managing to shake off Fulham defeats without it letting it totally ruin my weekend. And then you get to the point where you sort of become a little bit used to it. And then the win does give you that bigger boost, doesn't it? It's just, it's been a while, should we say. We've had a bit of a dry spell. Have you got some 3-word reviews for us, AF?
I absolutely do. So we've got random Fulham stuff with Wolves' Silver Bullet, Jack Frieda with Big Bad Wolves, which they really were bad. Londinium Calling with OG again, ole ole. Fulham Home Runs with Sander sells seats. Max FT with Full Moon Feast. And Tony McCracken with Own Golden Boot.
It is becoming quite a theme, isn't it? I think own goals are still our top scorer. It would be amazing if we get to the end of the season and that's still the case. But given the exploits of some of our attacking players yesterday, I somehow don't think that's going to be the case. Dan, your brilliant quick take. It was so nice you had to do it twice. If anyone hasn't watched it yet, I do recommend. It was a solo take. Some great analysis as always, mate. And you mentioned straight off the bat that one of the things that you're most excited to look out for this game was the lineup. And Fulham's lineup incredibly positive. I was very happy to see. Kevin earning his first Premier League start, Iwobi in the middle, which you've written about and been calling for at length. But that paired with the absolute banter lineup that Wolves put out as well had me in a very good mood, it has to be said. What were your first reactions when seeing both of these team sheets?
I was the first thing you always see, you've got the Twitter notifications on, the Instagram notifications on for when the Fulham lineup drops, and it came out and instantly I saw Iwobi and Kevin in there. I was like, okay, I think I know what's going on here. And to see Tete back in as well, everything felt really positive, what we'd been hoping for, and it just gives you that little bit of a spark. And about a couple of minutes later I was like, okay, go have a look at what Wolves are putting out. I just saw their midfield and didn't see Andre or João Gomez. I was very confused. I thought maybe I've missed the boat here. I'm a bit out of the loop on Wolves. Maybe both of them had just come back from injury. It's not, in my mind, that's not what had happened. Went straight onto Twitter, checked the replies to Wolves' official club tweet for the lineup, and read through the replies, and oh my God. We're just like, well, we just are going to win, aren't we? Because everything was just like, he wants to get sacked. What is he doing? He's lost the plot. We've got 2 Brazilian internationals on the bench, and you're just like, yeah, this is 2 clubs who are having tough starts to the seasons, but are coming into this game handling it very, very differently. That's a club that's just completely splintered at every point, whereas this still feels like a lot of unity in ours. And it was the perfect thing to see at 1:45, wasn't it?
Yeah, as you say, 2 Brazilian internationals on the bench, centre-back playing in centre-mid. it was, it did seem all over the shop. It kind of, people say Tuchel's final days at Chelsea was deliberately trying to get sacked for whichever reason. It did have a slight feel about that. Jordan, how did you feel about the opening stages of the game? I thought that Wolves were undeniably poor. I would put them in the category of one of the worst teams, Premier League teams, certainly I've seen at Craven Cottage. It was certainly a gulf in quality. I think Fulham have been down on confidence themselves, but and I think that kind of played out in the opening stages. I felt we were a little bit disjointed at times, and it took us a little while to get going. But I mean, it has to be said, Wolves were. You know, it was the team to play at the right time in terms of getting our confidence back. It has to be said. Would you agree?
I would. Yeah, I mean, both me and you were at Wickham during the week, and for quite a strong squad, we did have a lot of weaknesses. We were looking at each other a lot through that game, quite worried about giving the ball away, distributions and stuff. And so seeing this squad, I mean, on the way to Craven Cottage, I'm usually driving at the time the squad gets announced, and I usually get Zoe, my partner, to read them out, and she was reading all of them in the order that Fulham released it in. I was trying to work it out in my head where everyone's going. So finally, when I parked up, saw Iwobi in the middle, I thought that's 1 point to Dan Cooke firstly. But I knew we were just going to go on the press. We were going to be really attacking from the start. And yes, we were. Kevin working those wings, Iwobi going out wide. But quite early on, Bellegarde did have a chance. It was such a fluffed chance, and I thought, when he turned, and I thought that's going to head in the back of the net, and I thought they're coming for us today, and that very, very quickly died out. We absolutely dominated possession and the tempo of the play and the width of the play right from the start. Kevin and Wilson were pinched right on the wings, spreading that whole entire midfield out, and it allowed us to finally just break through the middle, play some direct passes forward, and we were all over them, I think, for the first 10 minutes, but I think very sloppy still. Sessegnon and Kevin's link up on that left side earlier on, I think they were just trying to work it out for themselves. I mean, Sessegnon was giving the ball away quite frequently and getting quite frustrating for us in the hammy end, but he sharpened up after the 20 minutes. But yeah, we came out the blocks. It was a good solid first 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, I think your point on both Wilson and Kevin really playing wide, you saw it every time we got the ball. They were just, both of them, just hugging that touchline, and it did just open up space in the middle, which is, of course, how we gained our opener. Santiago Bueno committed to an interception. I think he had a battle with Bassi in the middle. Poor touch fell to Jimenez, who played an instinctive, delightful first-time ball through to Sessegnon, AF. I mean, it was a finish. If it found the back of the net, I think the keeper perhaps should have done better. But can you just explain to me the sense of relief that you felt when you saw that hit the back of the net?
It was relief mixed with complete confusion as to how we managed to part a team like Moses and the Red Sea, because we've not done it all season. And it's completely right what Jordan's mentioned with the wingers hugging the touchline, because it really gave us this opportunity for Raul to assist a goal, because he's so often, I'm thinking, okay, is he an out-and-out goal scorer? Yeah, of course, but he is probably better at assisting at this point in time than Rodrigo Muniz is. So you need to give him almost that extra space in almost the 10 position to be able to play those final passes. And the only way you do it is if you spread the midfield. My favourite bit about that goal, though, was the fact that Bassi played the assist to the assist. He did still play the ball forward without completely shitting himself, which it didn't give him all the confidence in the world, but it must have got him on the road to recovery, let's say. And I have no doubt in this one, even though Ryan Sessegnon missed a penalty against Wickham, I had no doubt he was going to finish this, which I think is a real good sign for our attack going forward, that if he's running through and you've got your left back and you're pretty confident that he's going to finish it, that's a really good position for us to be in.
Did anyone else do a double take when that ball broke after Jimenez played it through and thought, oh, we're through? Why is that Ryan Sessegnon?
Yeah.
Like, I was just like there was a moment I was like, how has he ended up there? But that is one of the perks you get of him playing there, is that he's improved so much as a defensive fullback. Like his defensive output is so much better than it was when we tried playing him there when he was 17 and 18. And, obviously we should probably expect that to be the case. But you also still have his instincts that he will never lose of just sniffing an opportunity to be like, hang on, there's a big hole there. And I reckon if I hit it, there's a good chance that I'm going to get a shot on the end of an opportunity. And how often do you see a left back, especially a Fulham left back, hit those parts of the pitch? Usually it's winger tucked inside, so normally it'll be a Kevin or an Iwobi dropping inside and fullback getting out wide. But that little swap over, I think, just totally threw Wolves, and they weren't expecting it.
No, I mean, it was so instinctive. I mean, Iwobi moving out really quickly and that ball being pressed forward straight through to Jimenez. We've not seen it. I don't think they would have even expected it. But what I was saying, with being with George during the week at Wickham, you were seeing Castagna and Tete, both Sessegnon and Castagna, right up in the attacking positions for most of that game. And it seems like a new sort of tactic that I think Marco's trying to work out, and it's working really well. We can just overload the wings with two wingers going forward, and use Rao as a little, pivot to switch it. So it was, I wasn't expecting it at all.
Another thing that I wasn't expecting, which I think was a big positive from Saturday's game, is watching the way that Kevin would drop back in to allow Sessegnon the freedom to bolt forward. It's not, I mean, maybe I'm stereotyping, but flamboyant Brazilian wingers traditionally aren't massively known for their defensive output as well. But I thought that Kevin provided that cover that allowed Sessegnon the space to move forward, and I was really impressed by that. We've seen him make some quite important last-ditch tackles as well. Obviously, there was the tackle that he made during the Arsenal game, which had been given for a penalty, but then was overturned. Turned out to be a brilliant tackle. So I'm really happy to be seeing that from Kevin. I felt that after going 1-0 up, Dan, Fulham kind of dominated, and then obviously I think a big turning point in the game came from the red card. Just, a lovely little bit of skill from Josh King. Agbadu takes him out, nudges it beautifully, just the tiniest little touch around the defender, takes him out. I think it was clear red card, but obviously the controversy came from checking whether King handled it or not. I've looked at it back, and I've looked at the sort of frame by frame, and I think that it's one of them where the referee's decision stands effectively, whether that be to disallow it or to let it go. It's right on the margin. One of those that VAR isn't really going to help massively on, but I think overall it was the right decision. Dare I say it? What do you reckon?
I think it was fine. There's this whole thing about the sleeve line right now. That's their handball marker. It helps that Josh King seems to have incredibly skinny arms and quite long sleeves. I think that's playing in his favour here. I think it's just about fine. From where the impact point looks like, it's probably just on the cuff of the sleeve. It would have been such another fiddly decision that goes against him that I was just so relieved that it didn't. But otherwise, I don't think there can be much complaints. It's so clumsy from Agbadu. I think it's quite nice playing Wolves on Saturday and that decision happening. If it was against a fan base who was less pissed off at their own clubs, there probably would have been more of an uproar of like a couple of decisions that were maybe 70-30. It could have gone, it's probably 70% the correct decision, but the other 30% could have really argued against it. Wolves fans are so fed up, and they're so fed up of seeing clumsy centre-backs and inexplicable defending that all of the abuse was just directed at their own players, and everyone just sort of moved on from the potentially contentious decision. So that was nice. If that had happened against Arsenal, can you imagine what their fan base would have been like?
Yeah,
it would have been brutal. So it was nice to just watch something maybe slightly go our way. I still don't think it's anywhere near the howlers that we've had go against us. It's just a little bit of fortune. But as you said, it's superb from Josh King, just that intelligence again. I think he slows down as he approaches the ball, because he knows that maybe he could nick in there, get round him and score, but but he also knows if he just times it right and gets the touch as late as possible, then he absolutely draws a foul because Agbadou can't pull out. And that again, and it's a shame that it was lost to the audio files, but Jack spoke really well about it, that Josh King has all the technical ability, but he also has the intelligence and the thought process of a more European style player, where it's always one step ahead, always thinking, always scanning, always checking the surroundings. And that's the most exciting thing I think about him. There's loads of talented 18-year-olds technically, but when you've got a brain like that in a central midfielder, just takes him to a different level.
No, I'd have to agree. I mean, he continues to impress, and yeah, I think it's just goes to show. I mean, he could have had 2 or 3 of those things go for him, but obviously he's thinking back of the disallowed goal against Chelsea, and then obviously he's had a couple of penalty shouts that have been overruled. But I mean, he's constantly getting them, and he's constantly drawing us fouls, and it's just so impressive to see how he keeps coming on leaps and bounds. AF, we kind of, after the red card, sort of had a bit of a slump, I would say, and Wolves had a couple of chances to get back into it. Strand Larsen headed over. I mean, were you sort of frustrated as I was to see this? Because I thought, how are we letting them back into this? You think 1-0 up, Wolves down to 10 men, surely this is game over, but it didn't look like it was going to be that easy at first.
Fulham have got the ability of making an easy situation look more difficult. And as soon as they went down to 10, I was thinking we're actually probably going to have a bit of a harder game for a little bit of time whilst we adapt to this, whilst we adapt to how they're going to probably sit deeper. Maybe actually, I think their centre-back getting sent off made them slightly more resilient at the back, which is absolutely insane to say. I think they realised that the error of their ways. But when we started to, I think it was just before half-time, we almost conceded from Strand Larsen, and I was thinking this would be the most Fulhamish thing ever to concede just before half time. When we came out for the second half, I said we have to score very soon, otherwise I actually think the Fulham fan base is going to turn almost as toxic as the Wolves one. It was almost as if we were playing it 0-0 again when they went down to 10 men, saying this is a new game, how can we win this game 3-0? Whereas I think Silva, to his credit, realised we're 1-0 up. We don't have to absolutely bomb forward to try and score 3 or 4 immediately, because I think if we had done that, I genuinely think Wolves might have got themselves one. I wasn't concerned, but I was concerned at how the fans might react if it stayed at 1-0 for too long, because we've seen last minute, equalisers go in or winners go in from Newcastle, and that would hit the confidence more than actually maintaining that 1-0 lead. So fair play for Fulham for actually weathering that. I won't call it a storm, because it was more like a little pitter-patter outside, but for weathering Wolves' attack just enough to get ourselves the foothold back in the game. I saw we were really we took so many shots in that game, but none of them were particularly, it wasn't dangerous. It was just pot shots that were kind of happening from the edge of the box, it's nice to see our players shooting. Well done. I saw Joe Samson put a tweet out to say, well done, Sander Berge, that's 2 shots in 2 games. But there was this kind of positivity going forwards that was building towards something. And I always thought at the end of the game, we would start to see, those goals, I won't say flooding in, but I knew that we'd get our position back in the game, because Wolves were so bad that I don't think it really mattered who they were playing. They were going to self-destruct after the 60-minute mark, and that's exactly what happened.
I think where I'd like to see Fulham improve, and I think AFU basically summed it up there, but from a mentality perspective, and I don't know if it's because we've gone through a bit of a rough patch and confidence has dipped a little bit, but when we went 1-0 up and then went a man up, it felt like the opportunity for a team to just go in for the kill, right? Take that confidence. You're 1-0 up. Okay, let's go out. Let's make it 2 quick fire. This team's on their arses at the moment, so we can really drive this home. But I'm just sensing a thing with Fulham at the moment of an apprehension or we're 1-0 up. Let's just manage this game now. Let's keep it at 1-0 for a bit. Let's take it to half time. Let's do this. And actually, when we've been at our best, we've never really been like that. Under Marco Silva, we've always been a really brutal, clinical side who are if we sense an opportunity to get on top of you, we're just going to do it. And I'd like to see that come back, and I'm hoping that going out and winning 3-0 brings that confidence back. because I'm not entirely certain it's a Marco Silva edict of like, okay, go up, if we go 1-0 up, put the brakes on for 10 minutes and cement that position. I think it's a player thing. I think there's a bit of a like one part of the team wants to really be proactive and go and get a second goal, whereas we've got a lot of cool, calm heads who I think are almost being a bit too self-aware at the moment. You know, I think Joachim Andersen is partially, not to blame, but I think he's a good example of this, where he's so experienced that he takes the moments to put his foot on the ball and slow things down, maybe at the wrong times. And there's a moment when you're 1-0 up to be like, okay, maybe if it's 5 minutes till half time and you want to make sure you get there, sure, put your foot on the ball, take it easy. But after going 1-0 up inside 10 minutes, I think there was an opportunity to go 2-0 up pretty swiftly after that. But we just put the brakes on slightly too much. And I'd like to see that change.
I would sort of back you up on that with Leno as well. I mean, we were just not under pressure at all for the last, like pressure, like being closed down for the last 15 minutes of that first half. You know, and we'd win possession in the box, Leno would pick it up, and rather than just darting it out to Tete to flank down the wing quickly, held it to his chest, he scanned, and then everyone was then man-marked again. I thought, you know, just that quick break of play, you know, with Robinson and Willian in previous seasons, that was just such an effective counter-attack, just so quick down that wing. And I think we can get that with Kevin and Sessegnon, or even when Robinson comes back. Them two together will be brilliant. Same down the other side, but I did see Tete have many options where Wilson was wide open on the flank, and he put his foot on the ball, scan, and then sort of play a risky pass in the centre of the field, and we'd lose possession. I just thought we just drew attention to ourselves that we didn't need. We just had so much time and space, and we were dictating it. But I don't know, it felt like a training exercise. We're just trying things out, and it just was not working. But yeah, we should put it to bed way early on.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully the momentum did well and truly swing back our way in fairly early on in the second half. Kenny Tete, I think, has to have a shout out for his effort from 30 yards out. Came very close as well. Certainly troubled Sam Johnston. And then on the 62nd minute, Harry Wilson, back from injury, with a lovely finish. Textbook Harry. You know, it's one of those that he just cut inside, and then before you notice, in the side netting. It was brilliant. He hit it first time after Berge's shot was blocked. Jordan, question for you. Is there a better finisher in our squad currently than Harry Wilson?
Oh, prolific when it's needed. No, definitely not. But there are some names up there for sure. I mean, look, Sessegnon, I think, has got 2 goals. Wilson's got 2 goals. And I think both of them equally going forward, one-on-one with the keeper. I wouldn't know who to pick, but when moments are needed and the game needs changing, I think Wilson is the only one who can step up and do that for us. And the way he actually finished that ball in the back of the net yesterday was just to a 50 pence piece. It was outstanding, and you could see it coming a mile off. You know, once that block happened from Sander Berge's shot, and you could see Wilson scream for it, and like the sea just parted in front of him. You know, everyone was already cheering before he even hit it. And yeah, I think that's fantastic to have that confidence in your winger. And I love to see him back in the squad again. And it's really nice. I mean, to answer that question, if we had a, fully fighting Muniz and even a Kevin who's probably got the confidence to take on a Premier League right back, I think that would be a different answer. But yeah, Wilson is by far on fire at the moment.
Yeah, it was a massive sense of relief when that went in. I thought it just, for me, put the game to bed, out of reach of Wolves. And then another positive stroke from Marco, I thought, Dan, was the triple substitution that he made on 72 minutes in. I mean, like, Wolves were down and out in complete disarray. They made some very confusing substitutions themselves, which I think really played into our hands. But Kevin came off for Smith Rowe. Kearney came on for King. And Jimenez went off to see Rodrigo Muniz return, which was a lovely boost from the crowd. But I think the substitutions really worked. I think Wolves really even further shot themselves in the foot. And for me, that was the moment where the game completely went out of reach for them.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of players in there that were perfect to bring on that opportunity. So I think bringing TC on, you couldn't make a more ideal scenario for him against 10 men where they're already out on their feet and he's able to just get in the park, pick up the ball and just run the game. It's an ideal situation for him. great for Muniz to come on and just get some minutes in his legs. I thought he contributed fine. There wasn't a huge amount for him to do. We saw his beautiful overhead kick, which I turned to Pritesh, who sits next to me, and I don't think he's necessarily the most technically sound footballer, but I'm willing to set my stall out and say that he has the best overhead kick technique in world football. Like, when you watch him take an overhead kick, everything suddenly, well, for a man who is usually just like limbs everywhere, arms flailing, legs kicking out, when he does an overhead kick, everything is in like perfect motion. It's incredible. It's like it's done like in a video game, and it was a very good overhead kick. It wouldn't have mattered because a foul got given, and then I thought Smith Rowe came on, and again, really good scenario for him to give him that confidence to start being a bit more positive again. Largely, when he's had cameos off the bench, we've seen good positivity from him. And then that game he started against Newcastle, we saw a bit of a reversion to some of the issues we've seen with him previously. Whereas against Wolves, there's a couple of moments where he picked it up, turned, drove towards them, stuff that we were hoping he would do when we signed him last summer. So I think all three of them had positive contributions. It was some freshness in the legs. It was also minutes into legs of players who have been injured, and also rest for players who have not been able to get a rest. You know, Raul has either been injured or playing every game. And the same goes for Josh King, really. So it was the perfect opportunity, and a spot on, as you say, Coops. Everything worked.
Yeah, exactly. It was just such a relief, really. And then, of course, AF. It didn't take long after the substitutions for our top scorer to pop up. I mean, he's having quite the season, isn't he? I mean, just really hope that this purple patch continues. If you can have a few words on OG, please, because he's really come into his own.
I feel like OG's been a bit of a trialist for us in previous seasons. We've seen him pop up here and there, but I do think that there's a reason why I say I think I can say Fulham score own goals, or Fulham push teams into scoring own goals. And I actually think it's great that it's happening, because it's largely been a time where Rodrigo Muniz hasn't been playing. We create chaos, and when we create chaos up front, ultimately people will put it in their own net. I saw our XG was pretty low. I don't rely on this stat, but 1.58, and we score 3. Well, we don't. We get other teams to make those mistakes for us. And what I really like about OG specifically in the way that he plays for us is that he pops up at times where Fulham have done a lot of the hard work, but we haven't got that finishing touch just yet. Now, I have no doubt that they won't be our top goal scorer come into the season. Reason being is because I know that other players in our team are going to take a leaf out of OG's book, and they're going to see how the other team can finish it for them. And, you know, maybe they'll step up to the plate. I see in that instance as well, like Emil Smith-Rowe was so close to actually getting that goal that he almost celebrated it himself. And that's great. If that does his confidence the world of good, maybe he wants to get that toe in front of OG next time. But I'm looking forward to the Everton game. If he keeps the run going, though, I think some other teams are going to be sniffing around him, right?
Yeah, I wonder if has that ever happened in Premier League history, own goals being... I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe some of the poorer sides, I'd imagine. But yeah, it's quite the run. It has to be said. Can we just spare a thought as well for those poor Wolves fans travelling down to London on a miserable November afternoon? It was pissing down with rain. The venom that you could just sense from the Putney end, it was quite something. After the full-time whistle, Fred and I was sort of stood in our seats, and I was like, "You stick and want to clap the boys?" And Fred is like, "To be honest, I'm more interested to see what the Wolves fans are going to do," because they, to their credit, stayed the full 90 minutes, which can only mean one thing. They were sort of like charging up to give Pereira both barrels come the final whistle, but. Yeah, it was a solid performance from the Wolves fans, I would say, who were like really dedicated in their contempt for their side at the moment, and who can blame them? You know, it was it was one of them which I imagine will go down in history as one of the all-time worst away days.
I thought Wolves fans were great. I feel so bad for them. Like when we quite rightly have had a go at our ownership, our board, the way that our club is managed. You know, we get price gouged, we are underactive in the transfer market, lots of issues. what we didn't do this summer, and it really puts it in perspective. Wolves sold their 2 best players and ultimately almost intentionally replaced it with shite. Like, you know, like there wasn't an ambition there. It was like, we think maybe this will be enough, we'll do that. And I feel so bad for them. And to hear this morning that the solution to this is apparently going to be Gary O'Neill again, like, I couldn't, like, you know, when we've fallen out with love with Fulham in the past, this is one of those moments, if you're a Wolves fan, isn't it, where you're looking at the fixtures coming down the line, you're like, oh, you know, that run between, like, run up to Christmas and up to New Year, and you're like, I might just go and see my mates.
One of my closest friends is sadly for him a Wolves fan, and over the last couple of years, it's been a roller coaster for him. I think this time, obviously, last year, I think they were all feeling the same thing. You know, first 10 games were rocky for them, but I still know they had Cunha and Ait Nouri, and yes, they had some injuries here and there. And I said, well, once they're back and fit, you'll be flying. And I was proven, obviously not as high as they would like to have been in the league, but they were safe. And ultimately, I could see that happening. Now, what's January going to fix? I can't see anything. I mean, the only player yesterday that I even just saw and I thought he could be something quite special was the 14, I think it was Tolu Orokadari or something, the really tall striker that they whacked on. And I thought it just reminded me a bit like, in Gisa when he just had his whole frame and structure that just powered forward. And I thought if they use him effectively, they could do something up front, because Strand Larsen was so quiet. And I just thought, I don't know where they're going to get goals from. I don't know, their defence. Totti got just so frustrated with the red card that he got himself a yellow card and had to get substituted. I don't think anyone can keep a clean head. But from the Wolves fans' perspective, they gave a 3-year extension under a very similar form that they were in a few months ago, to then have Sean Dyche get taken up, and then Nuno, who they would have probably dreamed of getting back, get taken up. And then, earlier in the week, it was Brendan Rodgers, maybe the question of, the replacement. But he left Celtic because he was so unhappy with the players that he got in and what was going on in the dressing room. And I don't think he's going to get anything better from Wolves. So I think Gary O'Neill was probably their most likely option. And I messaged that to Mitch, my friend, this morning. He went, kill me. He just can't cope. So I can't. I think if he's a summary of everything, I'm depressed for them. And it's weird. A lot of people probably have a different perception to me, but because obviously when you have really close friends of yours and you kind of want to back them just because you want them happy down the pub or when you speak with them, you don't want them grumpy. And yeah, it's a depressing year for them ahead. I can see.
Yeah, cool. The return of the turkey teeth. I think I'd probably just sell my season ticket if I was a Wolves fan. Yeah, as a sorry state of affairs. The mantra of first the points, then the pints from Pereira feels like a long time ago now, but in reality, it was only 6 months ago that was the, Wolves were celebrating their new manager, and it's not gone well. You have to feel for them. Just quickly, AF word on Samuel Chukwueze, who came on and looked dazzling. Return from injury, and it's amazing the difference that a week can make, right? Last time I was on a Monday pod, we were post-Arsenal and people were despairing and you're looking at 4 on the bounce, and I kind of sort of tried to make the point that, we've got players coming back from injury, we'll beat Wolves, and then everything will be in the hat for the next round of the Carabao, and everything will look okay. And I'm glad I feel like that's the case. And Chukwueze, I thought was a shiny beacon of that, because he just looks so sharp, and I imagine that he'll start to feature more and more as the weeks come on.
I think it's great to see our right wing with some credible possibilities to end the season out with. My view on Silva's signings in Kevin Chukwueze is that he did get what he asked for, he just got them far too late. So he never had the pre-season, so he never had the preparation. But they are what he asked for, and they are the right players in those positions. I would be shocked if we don't end the season, barring injury, with Kevin and Chukwueze starting on our wings. But what was great to see when he came on is that in the same way that we've had to see Kevin's game, Silva has refined Kevin's game I don't think he has quite as much work to do with Chukwueze, in that he kind of already plays how Silva wants him to. He's cut inside, he's creating opportunity after opportunity. I don't know how he doesn't score at the end. It's harder not to score than what he does, but that will, he hit the post from like 3 yards out, but he will get that confidence. He will get goals for us. And I think it's actually a great conundrum to have that you've got Harry Wilson and Chukwueze on the same wing. I think Wilson's always been a great impact sub for us, and I think he might end up being that. But also, you can switch things up game by game. I don't think you have to start one for, Harry Wilson doesn't have to have a run of 6 games anymore. You can have him for a couple, Chukwueze for a few. And there'll be certain times where in games where you need to change things up, and actually we have the ability to do it now that those signings are coming back. Shout out to the Fulham physios who went from an injury list of about 7 to everybody suddenly either starting or being on the bench. I don't know if they're really good at keeping secrets or just incredible at turning things around in a week, but can we do the same thing for Anthony Robinson, please? Because I'd like to see him in the squad too.
Joe, I think I'm going to blame Marco Silva. I think Marco, over the past month, he's done that thing, when things are going really badly and you just like, where he's injured, he's going to be out for months, and he's out for weeks as well. This is an absolute joke. Like, what am I meant to do? And actually, when you actually look back on it, you're like, he was out for a week and a half, Marco. Like, you could have saved us all of this stress if you'd have just kept your cool in your press conference a little bit.
Yeah. Oh dear. But yeah, it's great to see him back and the injury list. Hopefully all the physios that are working independently on each of the players can now just all focus on Robinson. I'm not sure. I'm exploiting my limited knowledge of how the world of physiotherapy works, but I'm just imagining 6 people all massaging him at once, trying to get him back up to speed. Just to back on the Chukwueze post, it was like, obviously it came at him at great speed, but he really smashed it, and it reminded me of a few years ago. Fulhamish played Brentford fans in a kickabout. I think we did it for charity. And the ball came to Jack Collins, who had a free header on the goal line and managed to put it over the bar. And it was almost like a feat of physics. I, to this day, do not know how he managed to do it. And it reminded me a little bit of that Samuel Chukwueze miss, but at least he hit the woodwork, whereas Collins, it was, I don't understand. It was basically how he even managed to get it over. I don't. Were either any of you lads playing in that game? Dan?
No, but he's never going to live this down.
He's never lived it down.
Every season. And I can't wait for the fact that he's going to be listening to this and he's going to be like, this is great, just basking in the glory. And then suddenly just like, that double take, like, I've got a minute.
Catch him.
There's that 50 Cent thing where he's like, what did he say fuck me for? Like, I didn't do anything. I'm not relevant here.
Yeah, catching strays. Anyway, it's a nice note to end on. We'll be right back with some of your questions. Part 2, the Fulhamish podcast. George here. I'm joined by AF, JWP and Dan. We've got some questions here. We're going to take some from the Telegram, going to take some from X and a few from Instagram as well. All bases covered. Have Chuck and Kev brought an end to our Achilles heel of the low block teams at the Cottage? Feels like they could be key to unlocking some of those defensives. It's the signs are certainly promising. What do you reckon?
Possibly. I think that what's fantastic about Kevin as well, he's so unpredictable. He can play that simple pass in and try and work up the pitch as Fulham like to do. But, very quickly he can try and do something over his top of his head, around the corner and in and out, and he's through. So, he can change the dynamic of what we want to do down that wing if people are sitting back. But with Chukwueze as well, I mean, I'd love to see what he can actually do down the wing, because traditionally he loves to get the ball, come centrally, straight through the middle, and have a shot or be on the end of something in the centre of the box. So I'd like to see what they can do both on the flanks when people are playing that low block. But I don't have they been up against that low block already this season? How's that fared? I can't recall a time when Kevin's been on and he's had to take on these players and do it himself. So I'd like to see a long, messy run like back in the day through the whole entire pitch from Kevin at one point and put it in the back of the net. But I think they're a secret weapon on either flank for sure. It's just how we work it. Whether we're going to do our traditional thing of trying to pass it in the back of the net from the wings, or do what we did against Wolves and just split open the whole entire midfield and play it through the middle. I think they are the key of that, for sure.
See, I think that final bit, Jordan, is where both of them do make a change and make an impact, but also this shifting Alex Iwobi out of that wide slot. By doing this, I think we've sort of democratised the way that we attack a little bit, because Alex Iwobi is an absolute ball magnet. Like, wherever he plays, the ball ends up getting dragged out towards him because he's so desperate to get on it and make things happen. And so I was having a look, and like this season, he's taken close to the most number of touches out of anyone in our team. The only people ahead of him are the two centre-backs, which you'd expect because they receive the ball more often. And he was doing that from the left wing role. We then moved him inside against Wolves into central midfield. He had the most touches again, but instead of having them out in the blocked out area of the left flank where we know opposition teams double up against us, they make space really tight, he's taking all of those touches from a central area, much more dangerous places, and now we've got the ability to go down both flanks. And I think that's where we really dragged Wolves about, is because you couldn't just focus on doubling up on either side because you've also got that central threat. And so I think having both the unpredictability of wingers like Kevin and Chukwueze, and also the reliability of wingers like Harry Wilson, who you know can just pop up with something, you've also got creative threat from the middle now as well. And I think that's where we've got that balance. We've all been saying it. We've just got a bit stale going forward because it's get it out to the left wing. Can our fullback get around Alex Iwobi? If he can't, can Alex Iwobi cut inside and put a ball into the box? That becomes a bit easy to defend when you're just doing it all the time. And actually, what we saw on Saturday was so many different ways of getting at a back line, and that was great.
Yeah, no, certainly encouraging. And no, I mean, I think it's very encouraging how many different options we've got on the wings for the rest of the season. It certainly bodes well. We've got a question here from Hussein Musa, who says, do our complaints against Ali Mack hold any weight? Should we escalate the protests? Whilst obviously I don't want to take too much away from the victory, I think it's worth mentioning the ticketing and seats situation going into this game. So Sammy wrote an article on our Substack, which basically highlighted the amount of empty seats there were still available, particularly in the Riverside stand. Tickets were for sale in excess of £100. I think there were a handful still available for around the £60 mark in the Hammersmith end. And the club actually took to requesting Sander Berge to take to social media to try and flog tickets, basically. I tried to view the video, and by clicking on it, it took you directly through to buy tickets to the Riverside. So I couldn't even see what the video was. It was a very sort of strange move. Sammy's obviously written at length about ticket prices, and for what it's worth, I agree with everything that he put in his articles. But yeah, it's certainly not encouraging. I feel like it demonstrates just how out of touch the board are with the fan base, and I guess highlights the overall disconnect between club and fan base at the moment. Anyone who thinks that £100 to watch Fulham versus Wolves is going to sell out Craven Cottage, I think, is somewhat deluded. The game, to my knowledge, wasn't sold out. There were swathes of empty seats in the Riverside stand, in the Hammersmith end, but I think ultimately also the atmosphere suffered. You know, it was a 3-0 home victory, a big victory at that. And whilst, you know, there were moments where the atmosphere was good, I thought by and large it was suffered from the ticket prices. I think that there are a lot of Fulham fans who would have loved to have been at that game, who was simply priced out, couldn't afford to go. AF, I just wanted to hear what your take was on the atmosphere and the sort of situation on the tickets. And I'll also open the floor to if anyone else has any thoughts.
My view is kind of threefold. I'll start off with Wolves and then I'll work into some others. But starting off with the Wolves game, as you say, whoever thinks that those tickets are going to be worth £100 is delulu. Like, it's completely insanity. A complete insanity that you would even start them at that price in the Riverside, regardless whether it's a new stand, who it's aimed at. It's Wolves Fulham, and they need to have a reality check. And I hope that was that. I get where the club couldn't drop the price once it was already there. They see demand and they go, well, we'll put Sander Berge out to try and sell some of them. But you can't drop the price because people who have already paid them will be annoyed. We don't do a responsive ticket pricing policy, but we're not really responsive to anything, fans' feedback, etc. I think the second problem is that we need to understand that this is not just this season. Being able to get your friend along to say, hey, I'll just bring you along to Fulham Wolves. Don't worry, we'll just get a ticket in the other end, and we'll go in for about £40 a ticket to see a Premier League football game, and you might end up being a Fulham fan. Or it's the younger generation, you're saying, come along to Fulham Wolves, see if you like Premier League football, and more importantly, fall in love with Fulham when we're winning 3-0. Those fans weren't there. There was a lot of people that missed out from that. So you've got the long-term vision. And then there's the final bit, which is the atmosphere. So I sit in the Johnny Haynes stand, and I've become accustomed to being surrounded by largely tourists. And I think this is happening from people who have season tickets who are selling those onwards. Regardless of that, you still had empty seats for this. So whether it's those season ticket holders who are selling them onwards weren't even able to sell them to tourists themselves. That can be responsive ticket pricing on whatever market they're selling it on. People still didn't want to come. Now, this might be the start of something worse for Fulham, in the fact that this Wolves game might be indicative of what happens if you continue with that ticket pricing policy, that we'll continue to have empty atmospheres. Marco will start to get annoyed with that. The Fulham players will start to get annoyed with that. And what happens if they tell Marco Silva, hey, can you go and sell some tickets online? Can you put a video out? He will absolutely lose his mind, and rightly so. I think there's a lot of problems at Fulham, but ticket pricing has to be number one up there. I don't think it is actually transfer policy. I think ticket pricing and trying to get fans on board with Fulham should be our number one priority going forwards.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think a big argument that comes against it is that, in order to be competitive in the Premier League, and we've heard it in various forms from the club as well, we need to increase revenues, which then lowers our financial fair play standings, and all of this. But I think that it's important to highlight the revenue from ticket pricing is in the grand scheme of things fairly. I won't say insignificant, but small in comparison to the broadcast rights, in comparison to the money that you get for finishing up the league. And I think that, having a strong fortress of Craven Cottage improves the performance of the team. And I'm not saying it's worth, it's worth points though. I think over the course of the season, having a good atmosphere at Craven Cottage is, the reason why they call it the 12th man. And yeah, I just think it's sad because, the reason that I became a Fulham fan is I got brought along by a mate. Tickets were very cheap back in when I got my first season ticket. I think it was about 120 quid for me for the year, for the season, sorry. I would not be a Fulham fan were it not for that. I'd God forbid, be a Brentford fan or a QPR fan. And thank Christ that didn't happen. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to take away too much from the victory, but it's just important to mention.
Yeah, I think the one thing that makes me actually really angry about it, all things considered as well, is because we know what Fulham are like, and they are such a PR-focused machine that actually all of the decisions they make and any backlash they get, their first thought is, like any business, how can we manage public perception to this? Right, and so Sammy's article sparked a bit of discourse. Henry Winter picked it up. People in the media and the public were talking about the pricing for this game. Fulham's response when they don't sell tickets to games is to then give out a load of freebies, because whilst the ground wasn't full yesterday, 100% it was more full than it looked like it was going to be on Friday night given the ticket sales. And you can't tell me that suddenly 750 people on Friday night decided they had 100 quid to spare each to go and watch Fulham Wolves. So what have they done? They've given out free tickets. So not only have you priced out genuine Fulham fans, you've then given those tickets away to non-Fulham fans for free. So it's like an absolute double whammy. You've got people who can't afford a ticket, and then you give it away for free to someone who's not even that bothered. It's maybe because they live around the corner. That really stinks to me. That, if I was, and touch wood at the moment, the season tickets are okay, so I can justify it. But if I didn't live in London and I couldn't afford the season ticket, I was looking at one-off tickets, and I saw that people who live in £5 million houses around the ground get them for free, and I've got to stump up 100 quid. I would stop going, and that sucks.
I think from my point of view as well, I mean, if facts are facts in terms of nothing's going to change. This is going to be the way it's going to be going forward. If we scream and it doesn't. It's the only way you can just mentally keep yourself sane. I want to know where the money's going. What's happening with all this money? Well, yeah, fine, paying off a huge, lovely stand that I never sit in, fine. But where is the money going? And, okay, if there's not credible answers for that, how does me as a hammy end supporter, how does my match day experience be elevated so I feel that it's worth that amount of it? Obviously, the entertainment of the game, if we win, yes, fine. But, our facilities in our hammy end haven't improved much. They can add a coffee shop stall in the corner. They can add some silver, stands to put your drink on down the edge of the concourse. But that's the only improvement I've seen from my experience. But I'm paying these extortionate costs, and I don't think that's reflective of our experience to the Riversides. Yet, I think we're taking up a lot of that cost. I don't know. I think there's so many unanswered questions, and I can't see a vision ahead of me of where that money's going, where it's going to be invested into, how is my experience as a fan going to be improved. If I did know those, and they said, look, it's going to be 90 quid a game or 100 quid a game, but this is our plans for the next 3 years, and by you doing that, you're investing into this, then you may have a less, grudge and grit in your teeth when, at the checkout, paying for it. I don't know, but I just think we're all in a little bit of the unknown, and just these prices get released at these extortionate costs, and there's no answers.
I think Sammy and Co will go into a little bit more depth during the Thursday Club on this issue. But I mean, we'd love to speak to someone from the club if anyone is listening and on this issue, because obviously we've been quite vocal about it, and right to reply and everything. So we're if anyone's listening and would like to sort of come on and speak to Sammy or speak to a member of the Fulhamish side, then we would certainly be all ears. Anyway, back to the game. As I said, I don't want to dwell too much on that because vital 3 points and all that. Christopher Lewis from the Telegram. I'll chuck this one to you, Dan, who's our sort of resident expert on this topic. Is the Lukić and Berge partnership now over, or is it still opposition dependent? And in your opinion, who's the starter of the two? I'm happy for them to finish a game together to manage a result, but I'm hoping Marco is strict enough in only having Iwobi or Kenny in the 8 position. What do you reckon?
I don't think it's over. I don't think it should be. I still think that there are games where it can work, and we've got to be honest, that midfield is pretty lightweight, really, especially defensively, when you've got Josh King and Alex Iwobi in it. If you're going to come up against a team that are going to have more of the ball than we do, you need people who can work better out of possession. And I think whilst it's not as fun, sometimes it's more practical. So I think there are games, and where you draw the line, I think is probably the interesting one, because obviously I think everyone goes Manchester City away. That's probably a game where you play Berge and Lukić together. But how far down do you go? Where is the tipping point? I think is an interesting question. And I think next weekend is the perfect one to work out how far Marco is going to go with this, because I think Everton away is probably, for some people, a game where you go Iwobi in the 8, and for some people you want to be a bit more resolute. And so I'm really interested to see what Marco does there. But I completely agree that in games where we are planning on having more of the ball, where we are intent on taking the game to the opposition, I don't think we need both of those midfielders anymore. They are a little bit too predictable. And actually what I found really interesting was that in a game where Sander Berge was tasked with being the solely responsible holding midfielder, he also stepped up a little bit and got a little bit more adventurous. He took on that mantle of being the sole deep playmaker, and he played some interesting passes. He broke the lines, he arrived on the edge of the area, he took a shot,
he had a dig,
and he had a go. And I'm intrigued by that, because actually you'd have thought he'd maybe even go into his shell even more because he's got even more responsibility, but he didn't. He was a little bit more flamboyant with it, and that was good to see. And between the two of them, I don't know who I lean further towards. I think Sander Berge just about edges it for me based on physical profile alone. Just the fact that he's a bit taller, he's a bit stronger, he's a bit quicker. But we can't forget that Sasha Lukić is just has been a stalwart in this side since the start of last season, and has regularly just reliably put out 6 and 7 out of 10s. He's so comfortable in possession. He's worked really well on what he does outside of possession. I don't know who you pick. Honestly, I think they've both got positives, but I still think we will see the two of them together at times.
Oh, I was going to say, I think you're more likely to actually see sometimes that we can't keep playing Josh King every single game. I think he's brilliant, absolutely amazing. But at that age, to get that many rings in your legs is not good for your long-term career prospects. So what you might end up seeing is Alex Iwobi come into the tent. Marco Silva, you're right to reply is within the next press conference. But if you actually end up seeing Alex Iwobi in some of those games, let's say against Man City, he comes into the 10, Josh King drops out the team, Kevin still starts, and you have Sess Lukić and Sander Berge starting in midfield. I think that's absolutely fine. Alex Iwobi makes our team better by being part of it. I don't think that will always be in the 8, but there's always going to be a position in the team for him, in my opinion. But I don't think it's the end of the partnership, as Dan says.
No, I think it's, as you two both allude to, it's going to be opposition dependent. The partnership will live on in some guys against some opposition, probably against teams higher up the table. But we shall see, I guess. And it's a good position to be in, the versatility of that midfield, although we could probably do with another reinforcement in the 8, I think is one of our strengths. So we shall see how that one pans out. Just on the note of how we've had a lot of people get in touch to say how refreshing it is to see a few of our players have a dig from further out. So Polish Pudding on Instagram says, notice more shots from outside the box from players like Sander and Tete. Keep it up. And then Daniel Punch also says, can we all be in agreement that Sander needs to pull the trigger more often? He gets himself in lovely positions and always passes the ball. Frustrating considering when he did take a shot, he set up Wilson. But yeah, also I just want to shout, Sander played an absolutely delightful ball out to, I believe it was Chukwueze, I think, in the second half. Lovely diagonal through ball from deep that set us off on that particular wing. It may have even been, I think it was Chukwueze. Anyway, so yeah, keep it up, Sander. We want to see some more shots. Can anyone for 10 points tell me the last time that Sander Berge scored?
Was it against Fulham?
It was against Fulham, yeah. And it was from 20.
Of course it was.
It was at Craven Cottage. It was from 25 yards out, and it was an absolute thunder bastard. So we know you've got it. We know you've got it in you.
I will say, Curtis, that I think to get nerdy on it, that shots from distance have become a little bit of a dirty thing in Premier League football. It's interesting. Like, I think Thomas Frank came out and did a little talk with Sky Sports last season about, when you take the XG of a shot from distance, it's not really the most effective way of scoring because you're only going to score 1 in 20, and you don't want to be taking 20 of those a game because you forfeit lots of other opportunities. Where it can be effective, and what I think where we saw it benefit us against Wolves, is when a team does sit deep and you're really struggling to break them down. If they know you're not going to shoot, they don't have to break their shape at all to defend you. If the ball breaks on the edge of the area, what you want is a defender who's not sure if you're going to pull the trigger or if you're going to try and pick out an intricate pass and get in behind them. If you don't have that either or, it's easy for them to sit in their shape. What Kenny Tete did yesterday was take a shot from 25 yards that ultimately, how likely is he going to score? It's unlikely, right? He could try that all season once a game. He'd maybe get one. But what it did do is just put a little bit of doubt in the minds of that Wolves back line, because the next time it broached him on the edge of the area, actually, we've got to rush out to this guy because he's willing to have a shot. And then you open up a little bit of space. And so I think that's where I think Fulham do need to do that more. And I think it's those 2 points that were made on Instagram are spot on, that Sander Berge should take a shot more often. I don't mind seeing Kenny Tete have a pop shot because it just disrupts an opposition defensive line and it just gives you an additional threat. And we're not expecting to score from all of them, but just create some indecision, make it not obvious what you're about to do next. Because so far this season, and also at the back end of last season, when Sander got the ball on the edge of the area, for a fact he's not going to shoot. So then it's really easy to know what your next move is as a defensive side.
Yeah, no, I'd say I think you're spot on there, Dan. Also, I think it's like that paired with the amount of screamers that we see us concede as well. It's just like, can't we have a slice of that action? John McGinn, bang. Kevin McAllister, bang. Cauley Woodrow, bang. And you're like, come on. Like, let's have some of that. But no, to your point, I think, yeah, just that element of unpredictability is definitely something that we should look to introduce a little bit more. And it's just, fun as well, which is what football is all about. Although it might be, we need to be reminded of that from time to time. Just a couple more questions. These are both quite fun on that subject. Jordan, this is from Ollie Marlowe on Instagram. Do you reckon we'll sign Andre when Wolves get relegated? Now, I was very reluctant to read this one out because that saga was, that was frustrating. I was sick of that guy's name by the end of that particular transfer window. But I think
it went on for about 3 transfer windows, didn't it? And last season he showed some promise. He was quite effective for them last season. But again,
big time. He was.
He linked well with Cunha. They had an attacking presence for them. He was so quiet yesterday, and even just his physicality and stature as a player. And you look at what we've got now with Berge and if Lukić was in there, or even Iwobi, he's a stature as well. It's not even a doubt in my mind. I certainly don't think he'd be a replacement for anyone in our squad. I think we'd have to be in a really bad situation to want to do it. I'm not doubting his ability, but I don't think he has the ability to shine in that Wolves team. So if yesterday was an interview, he didn't get the job.
I would fully take him. I feel like we've been crying out for a player fits his profile, just as reinforcement in the middle. I thought last season he showed what he's capable of. He became a fan favourite at Wolves. Yes, on Saturday he didn't start and then got introduced into an absolute ham sandwich of a formation. So I feel like, it may be a little bit harsh to say that he failed his job interview. I would take him hands down. I think there's a lot of potential there. Brazil international. Link up with Kevin.
Wolves fans gave him a rating yesterday of 3.3 out of 10. If BBC player ratings have anything to go by, but
who was higher in that team out of interest? Was anyone higher than a 3.3? I imagine there were a couple of 2s.
John Stone in goal.
What did he get?
And João Gomez with a 3.42. But then
lofty heights.
So by that metric, he was their second best player on the pitch.
There's quite one to look at really with that, because obviously Sander Berge yesterday. I'm just quickly nodded over to Fulham's one. He only got is a high rating as such on average, but a 6.97, which was our third lowest score out of the whole entire squad yesterday.
That's interesting. I thought he was brilliant on Saturday.
I genuinely could have said he was an alternate man of the match for me. Just the way he cleared up and just helped secure everything in that middle yesterday. But I guess it's a spot on the pitch that people just sort of turn a blind eye to sometimes, don't they?
Yeah, a thankless task. On man of the match, a few people were very impressed with Sess. Obviously, got on the score sheet. Ashley Mayhew on XAF asks, is it too ambitious to want Sess in the England squad? Feel like if he was showing this form for Spurs, he'd be in. Now, obviously, we've waxed lyrical about Sess, and maybe we are a tad biased. But would you like to see Sess called up for England?
I would love to see Sessegnon called up for England, and I can't see a way that it doesn't happen if he continues to play for Fulham at left back. I think his biggest problem in getting in the England squad is 2 things: Anthony Robinson and his own versatility. In the Anthony Robinson comes back, cool. Sessegnon might start to play maybe at right wing, left wing. He's playing at different parts in the Fulham team, which makes it harder to pick him at left back because he's not playing there week in, week out. If, however, Robinson's injury is maybe a little bit worse than we feared, or it's longer term, if Sessegnon is playing week in, week out at left back for Fulham in the Premier League, you're looking really ahead of him at Jed Spence. I'm not entirely convinced that he is the entire option there, and obviously he might be dropped considering his reaction to Thomas Frank at the weekend. I think that Sessegnon is definitely in the conversation, and I think Tuchel would like the idea that he has versatility in Sessegnon too. But I just worry that he's going to end up dropping out of our team, or he might get an injury just before the World Cup or something. But he should be in the conversation, and I don't see a reason, if he's playing week in, week out, that he's not considered, because it's not that lower league clubs or clubs in outside of the big 4 aren't considered by Tuchel. I think he's definitely going to be looking that way for sure.
I called this out on a pod a few weeks ago. I was like, if he keeps it up, I think the only thing that's actually going to go against him is probably, and I know you are right, AF, that Tuchel hasn't exclusively looked at the top clubs, but I think Fulham are just going to be probably not good enough this season to justify what would be to other fan bases a pretty curveball call up, because how many people are really seeing what Sessegnon's doing at the moment? I imagine there's quite a lot of England fans who still think Ryan Sessegnon's like out on loan from Spurs somewhere. Like, you know, he's not been really jettisoned into the limelight outside of us. But if you want a left back who can play as left back or really well as a left wing back, there aren't many better options for England at the moment. You know, a naturally left-footed, left-sided player. You're looking at you've got Lewis Hall at Newcastle, who's been struggling with injuries a lot. You got Lewis Skelly, who was great last season, struggling to get into that Arsenal side this season. And then you're starting to look deeper, and you have Tyreek Mitchell at Crystal Palace. Like, I'd have Sess over him. Then Luke Shaw, Ben Chilwell. Like, these are players that currently, right now, he's playing better than all of them, because one, some of them aren't playing, and two, if they are playing, Sess is blowing them out of the water. So he should be in the conversation. I just can't see it happening.
Just be so nice, wouldn't it, to see a Fulham player wearing an England shirt? Who's the last? Was it Bobby Zamora? Last player that Fulham player get an England cap? It must be. I can't think of who it was since.
Bet's got a call up, but he didn't play.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been long overdue. And come on, Seth, do it for Roehampton, do it for England. But yeah, hats off, mate. And great to see him on the score sheet as well. Also, just finally to wrap, did anyone see the? The club called it bullying. It might be a slight stretch, but after Sess was celebrating, it was the own goal, wasn't it? Was it the own goal? Was it the? Yeah,
it was the own goal. Yeah.
Was it? I can only think it's because they all knew it wasn't his goal, so they were like, "Shut up, Sess, come on." But yeah, it was nice to see. I think it's like, it's a term of endearment. It's like, my little brother Fred in the footwork office. We pick on him, but it's not because we're bullying him. HR, it's because we love him, and he's great. It's a sign that he's endeared to the rest of them, which is what I think it is. Anyway, last thing we got to do. AF is name the pods. What are you going to go for? What's your favourite 3-word review?
I'm going to go with Tony McCracken with own golden boot.
Yeah. Own goal again, LA. Own goal again, LA. Yeah. Thanks for a lovely pod, gents. That was joyous. That was nice. It felt good talking about a win after what had been a very long time. Thanks very much, AF.
Cheers, George. Thanks.
Cheers, Dan. You don't need to talk about this game anymore.
I don't know. I think I could keep going. It's just, it feels nice, doesn't it? We can really revel in this one.
Yeah, a nice one, Jordan.
Thank you for having me. It'll be exciting to actually design some positive graphics for the Fulhamish YouTube and socials for once. Getting quite depressed making sad ones.
We'll be back on Thursday. Until then, have a fantastic week. Come on, you Whites.